And action, and welcome everybody. It is PnP Weekly episode 129, and I'm Vesa Juvonen. I'm here with Waldek. Where is our visitor? What? Anyway, so it is 31st of May 2021. Summer is coming, and this time we do not actually have a visitor. But before we go to the discussion points from last week and in general, in the PnP Weekly, I always talk about the latest on Microsoft 365 in general and focusing on platform areas, potentially more than other areas. Is that the right way of saying this? I don't know. So,
yes.
Yes. We talk about whatever comes to mind. And we are week after build, and we didn't actually cover, we didn't invite a visitor in here, so we can talk about the build discussions and all of that. And let's see how this goes. Now we need to have a discussion, just two of us. Can we deal with that?
Let's try.
Let's try.
Yeah, I think we will run out of stuff to talk in about 3 minutes, so it's going to be a short one.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, we Finns, we typically don't talk too much. So
you are Finn. Yeah, I'm not.
That's true. Anyway, so let's actually jump right into the last week. Build 2021. Any first impressions? How was the week for you?
So I didn't have I'd say I didn't take the chance to attend the events. It was for me like middle of the week, middle of work. I presented 2 sessions, I think 3. So one together with you, and then another one about those about Learn. So we presented one of the Learn modules we have for the Microsoft Graph Toolkit. And then another one thought that I had was building a JavaScript app with Microsoft Graph Toolkit, which we also exposed in Teams. Yeah, that was an interesting experience to do it virtually and do it that sense that even though the most of the talks were pre-recorded, that actually the 3 that I delivered were all live. So it was kind of different experience than other people presenting had.
Did you have any of the consultations? You didn't, right?
I did. So I had one of them, and that was actually pretty good, right? So we also offered at Build the ability for folks to book meetings on one-on-one meetings with people at Microsoft, whether PMs, developers, and whoever volunteered, basically to talk about things that they find interesting, whether that was the app they built, technology, or anything else. And I had one, and that was actually pretty interesting. So I talked to a person who wanted to know more about using Graph and how it works with permissions and AADs and all, and that was very interesting. Like, it was interesting to, as much as it was interesting for me to answer the stuff that they asked, it was also interesting for me to learn from them. Like what they do, what kind of apps they think, where are they stuck, what's okay, what's not.
Yeah. One of the things what always happens is that when you work with a certain group of people like you and me on a day-to-day basis, you kind of lose the track of where the other people are, and then having these one-to-one consultations is great for having a discussion and kind of also a reality check on things as well. And then learning and getting input related on how can we improve. So what kind of material should be available? How can we improve the guidance and samples and all of that stuff? So which in general is actually in a really, really good shape though. So I think it's much better than it was many, many years ago, but still you can always improve.
I recall still the days when we had everything on MSDN.
Yeah,
and there was like, I mean, there were a few things there, and basically back then you would choose either a book or a few blogs, but that was about it, right?
And
there was no YouTube, there was no exactly. I mean, that was actually a good thing, because like the truth, how things work in code often lies in code. Like you can have docs, but at times they are out of date, and if you get the access to the code, you can see like, aha, so that is how it works exactly.
But
So,
even
yeah,
understanding to be able to read the code, you need to have a certain level of understanding how things actually work, right?
totally,
So,
totally,
because
absolutely.
otherwise it's like, okay, there's a lot of code, cool.
Where would I
So,
start? I mean, I recall still, like, so back in the days, back in the days, like my background was PHP. And the way you work with that, like if you build a PHP site with Apache, like you go to the location on your disk where the website is, and you find the files there. And then I would get to work the first time with SharePoint. I was like, okay, so I know so there is IIS. It's pointing to this location on the disk, but it's empty. Like, where is everything? And then you kind of learn, oh, it's virtual directories. It's pointing to different places on your disk. But like the first impression is, okay, so I go to browser and it shows stuff, but the disk is empty. Like, how does it work? So it's exactly that, as you say, like you can get to access to everything, but you need to know where to look.
Yeah. And at the time, when you think about it, actually, even, I don't know why we always talk about historical things. It's a clearly sign that we're getting old. But even build was different, obviously, because build was only for max 5,000 attendees, and then you signed up, and it actually might have cost you 3,000 to register or sign up, and then it got a laptop or whatever as the signing, kind of as part of the deal. So there was, and then everything happened on site or a specific location. I think I've done build in San Francisco and Seattle at some point. Yes. Nowadays we don't travel, so it's quite different.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, we do. I go to the park.
True. We travel differently. That is true. Yes, indeed.
We travel. You could say we travel more environmentally friendly.
Well, that's true as well. That is actually a good point. That's certainly absolutely a good progress. Now, coming back on build, what else are good learnings from last week?
So the one thing that I found interesting is the way we at Microsoft talk now about apps that we built on Microsoft 365. So we came up with the idea of collaborative apps, which are basically meant to help you work smarter, more effectively, more efficiently, and they kind of bring together all ingredients that you have available in 365, including Power Platform. So like bringing everything into one. And I like the idea a lot that we came up with a term that encapsulates everything that we have to offer, as opposed to talk to, so now you can use Graph on Teams, you can tap into Power Platform, you can it's like naming a bunch of services that we have and try to resonate with the audience, because it is hard. If people don't know the building blocks, it's really hard to understand.
True, and it's not really about the products and services in the first place, it's all about what kind of capabilities are available, how do you combine the bits and pieces and build your own solution, and calling them collaborative applications is actually a pretty smart thing. And then it differentiates the message from Azure side, because Azure is more a code level building blocks, and then M365 is around this collaborative applications. Of course, we're using Azure behind the scenes, but still. So
yeah, and actually on Azure, like you get many things, right? Because like on one, as you said, you get building blocks, you get things like cognitive services, like things in which you can that already extend the features of your app. But then also on the other hand, like you get infra, you get a place to run your app, whether that's serverless or Docker. So Azure is many different things to many folks. And it's like for that, like if you don't know it, it might be hard to grasp.
True. Absolutely. Yeah. Any other learnings from your side? Anything interesting from last week?
So the one that another thing that I found interesting is that we announced a preview of the Teams Toolkit V2, which is a new set of tooling that we have to offer to build apps for Teams, to build collaborative apps, if you like. And the cool
You're
thing,
learning the terminology. That's really cool.
Exactly. Like we try to get it in place, right? Like rinse and repeat, right? And the cool thing there is that the team behind tooling acknowledged the challenge that many developers have with auth. And that isn't specific to M365. Like auth is hard no matter where you are, because each cloud service does it differently. Like there are different ways to do it. There are different SDKs. So the more services you use, well, the bigger the chances that you will need to learn all the different ways in which they work. Right. And team behind tooling, behind Teams Toolkit V2 recognized the challenge, and they offered a simplified way to get tokens and to get basically to the point where auth is no longer an issue. So with that, I'm interested in like how community will see it, and if that indeed alleviates the challenges that they have, or if there's anything else that we could improve.
Absolutely. And the Teams Toolkit V2 also kind of, it has the SPFX side of the story as well. It's getting integrated there. I think it's also really cool that it's the Visual Studio team which is building that. So they kind of, a Visual Studio team acknowledges the opportunities in Microsoft 365 and now are building up the real team for creating Visual Studio tooling for the team's development first, and then probably for other areas in the future. Who knows? We'll see how it's being adapted. So, and it is actually pretty cool that you can actually build a UX layer even in SPFX and then an Azure function, and you can do step-by-step debugging inside of the Visual Studio code. So for both sides, and that's actually really, really cool. So
and also with that even with that approach, like imagine that you are in function, and in function in Azure you want to call graph, so you need to authenticate, right? Because like the part in SPFX you might have that is already authenticated because that lives in SharePoint, and it can be even running in Teams, but it's already in a way. And then you call function, which is authenticated with AAD, and SPFX helps with that. But then from the function, if you want to call graph, you need to do something about it. You need to authenticate. And that is exactly where Teams Toolkit V2, or actually Teams FX, is going to help you, which is kind of a new SDK, Teams FX, that's going to help you to really simply obtain a token that you can then use to connect to Graph or other APIs behind AAD. So I'm curious, like how will that land in the field and what people will think of it?
Yeah, and how fast are people starting to use all of these tools as well? That's always an interesting discussion, is that how fast people are adapting the new tooling and accepting the new tooling, moving away from the proven models, what they might be using right now, to, hey, here's now this new tool. And is it good enough versus what they're doing and all that? So it's an interesting to see.
And I think it's also another interesting thing is that it is currently in preview, right? So for one, I would assume that how far it becomes GA depends on feedback and the readiness the field gives to it, right? And also the internal team behind tooling that will think, okay, are we ready, or are we in a state where we can release it globally to everybody? So that is one. And as for tool being used, I think that depends very much on how useful people find it, because that drives a lot of the adoption, right? Because and that is also a cool thing about tooling, that when you build an app, in theory, you can use any tool you want, because at the end, what matters to customers, to partners, is to build the app that they need. And whether they build it left or right with this tool or that tool, like that isn't as relevant. And I guess that also gives developers more power and also more leeway to choose the tools that they want and need. So there isn't as much lock to it, or it isn't being dictated by anything, because like at the end of the day, what they care about, I think, is how do I get to where I need to be as quickly and easily as I can. And if that tool is that way, they will use it.
Yeah, absolutely. And how can I concentrate on actually implementing the business logic rather than the framework and everything else, and authentication and whatnot, and plumbing and so that's true. And that's actually always the classic discussion, which we absolutely 100% want to have feedback from the community and customers and partners, which is, how can I help you more on this? And what if the token and authentication? Yes, we understand that. What next? How can we make it even easier? What is the next step of making things easier? Because then that helps on everybody in the community for driving adoption. So,
but I guess that is also an interesting thing, right? Because like the other day we talked to one of our partners, and the one thing that we heard is that by the time they get auth done, the money is gone, and there is little room left to build the app or project or whatnot, because it's so hard. So in a way, like, sure, like we can go and ask them, okay, imagine we do auth, because we hear it a lot. Imagine we do it. What's next? Well, maybe they don't know because they even didn't get that
they
far.
never had a chance to actually focus on anything else than the auth.
Right.
Yes.
So it's also like, one thing at a time. Like, I think the moment we fix that, the bar will raise, and then it'll be okay. Now that that thing is granted, the auth is done. Now we have more room to explore.
And I think that's always the human mind, or you need to set one thing on the side, and so you can actually free up time and thinking points for the other topics as well. So yeah, absolutely makes sense.
Yeah, it is in a way like pyramid of needs. Like the first need is off.
Yeah,
you cannot do anything. Like so,
Maslow's pyramid of exactly. Yeah, it's absolutely. Now on the build, one thing, but obviously pretty busy week for us as well. I had on Wednesday I had the last meeting like 11 or midnight, and then I had the first one-to-one consultation on Thursday morning at 8 a.m. in the morning.
Why do you do that to yourself?
No, that's completely normal. So it's completely normal for me to work in a slightly adjusted time zone. So that's completely fine. So it's just the meetings are on the evening because, hey, I'm in an organization which physically is located in Redmond. So it makes more sense for me to work on the evening side, which frees up my daytime. So that's not a massive deal. It's
unless you have a meeting at 8 a.m.
Well, no, that's an exception if it's a build and it was the one-to-one consultations, right? So, but then you show up on a 8 a.m. in the morning meeting, and then nobody shows up. And I was like, no.
Yeah, and I'm like, you did the makeup. You were in your suit, like you rearranged the office.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's like nothing, no show. I was like, oh. Yeah.
Of course, I was wearing a tie and you know.
Yeah.
So already.
So what was your impression of build this year?
I think so. I think there's a lot of virtual meeting fatigue and virtual conference fatigue around. I think there was a lot of cool announcements, cool things, which is one thing. There's a lot of announcements happening in a 1 week. So now we need to just keep on repeating, so people actually have time to catch all of the things which were announced. So even as we collected the articles for today, it's like, well, that one around the build announcement, which is like, wow, there's a lot of stuff. I think the book of news was actually really good, which we don't have actually open in the slides. I need to go and pick it up.
Let's pick it up.
And then there was I had a pre-recorded videos done, and the roundtables were always a good discussion and collecting feedback. One-to-one consultations, I'm not sure if that's, how would I put it, if that's a future-proven way of doing things, or that's something what we should be doing in every single conference. The reality is that you don't know if people are going to show up or not. They're not incentivized necessarily to do that. Then it's a lost time spot, and not necessarily because, of course, you can work on other stuff, but you kind of put your mindset on, hey, I'm going to book this hour for this topic, and then it's really hard to jump to another one. And also, at least in my case, I had 5 consultations on Thursdays, from which I think 2 of them were about SharePoint, but nothing related on the development topics, which was basically the title of the consultation. So it kind of off the scope completely, which is not a big deal as such personally, because as an ex-consultant or recovering consultant, you can always help people, so that's not the problem. But still, it wasn't really optimal. So,
what about announcements? Like, which announcements have you found the most, I don't know, let's say interesting, intriguing?
Of course, on the Microsoft 365, there's a lot of interesting announcements on the Teams side of the house, which is always the interesting side of the things. I'm in the ODSP, OneDrive SharePoint side of the house, which is getting kind of merged inside of the Microsoft Teams as the content and development platform. So following up on all of this stuff and making sure that there's a guidance and information available for them is interesting. Jeff Teeper's keynote was really good. I enjoyed that. I didn't really have a look on the other ones as a recording, which actually shows one of the problems, because as the build is remote, it's not like anybody can just open up hours and hours of time to watch the recordings during the daytime or when they're working, because everybody is just expected to work and delivering value. In the same way as at least I didn't have a time to go and double check many of the on-demand recordings. Have you had a chance to do that? I guess not.
Not yet. And I guess on the other hand, like I prioritize my time differently, right? Because like there is no one telling me like you need to spend this hour on that and that hour on that.
Sure.
So like there are things you have to do, and it's up to you to choose when, right? And I guess that is exactly the same case for you, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess like maybe this week I will choose some time to do it, but on the other hand, like there are some other things I want to do too. So at the end of the day, it's trade-off.
Yep.
Like if there is something important, I will learn from it.
But I think that's one of the challenges for sure for the remote conferences always, is that how can you as a developer who has your day-to-day job and family and hobbies and everything else find the time for catching up on these things? And quite often, unfortunately, the announcements what we do in these conferences is something like preview on upcoming things. It's like, okay, so that doesn't help me on the day-to-day work. So therefore, so whenever it's out, we will have a look on that. So
and also the fact that like in the past, or at least I feel that way, that in a past, knowing what's coming ahead of time felt at least like it had more impact on me and my work. Whereas nowadays, it's like the pace of change is so much that knowing what's coming in half year is like, but there are like 20 million other things coming in next month or next week already.
Yes.
And I need to do that. Whereas the thing in half a year, maybe it will come, maybe not, maybe it will change, maybe it will be revised 3 other times. I'll see it when I'm there, you know?
Exactly. Absolutely. And obviously now coming on back on the let's say announcement, something what was interesting to see that we went public with the Viva Connections preview. So people can sign up on that, and we're already in past 300 signups, which is, so this is getting bit too difficult to actually keep up to date on, even on the subscriptions. So now there's a discussion that should we just open this one up for externally available rather than keeping it as we enable for you based on your request, because it's just complicated. So
it is, and I can imagine that at that stage, like if you really want to cater to everybody, like it will. Sure, like there is difference if you want to open it for a selected group versus everybody, but on the other hand, the feedback you will get at the scale of 300 folks, who would be a private group to whom you specifically open that, whom you would expect to give feedback. I don't think there would be much difference from opening it for everybody.
Yep, I do agree on that. So we'll see what actually happens there. I think. So there was people were slightly hesitant for opening up as a public preview at some point, but then why wouldn't we? What is the
scale, right? I mean scale, but on the other hand, like if you see that much interest in it, I think it also kind of reinforces the message that people want to see it and it's interesting and there is interest in it. So why not build up on that, right, and get more feedback? Or find a way around it. Yep.
Absolutely.
Thinking about what you asked, right? Like, how do you find time to catch up on build or to catch up on all content released on virtual event? I thought, like, what if next time? And I got the idea from one of our partners who did that at one of our internal events. Let's book a hotel room for 2 or 3 days. Isolate yourself from everybody, or do it with a team, and do it basically be off work but not at an event. You know, so make yourself unavailable to everything else, and then focus 100% on the conference.
Doable, yes, absolutely. That was, by the way, that was so cool. We had a private preview, a private dev kitchen, which is kind of a hackathon, and earlier this year related on Viva Connections, and it was an invite only. Now it's actually open for everybody. But this one partner basically, well, let's not actually name the names, but one partner basically decided that okay, he's going to concentrate really on understanding how this works. So booking a hotel room for 3 days and stayed there writing code. So yeah. And by the way, his stuff was really awesome during the demo.
The result was really great. But I mean, like that person had like I don't know 3 days.
Yes.
Hands-on, dedicated. I mean, I don't know what else they did. Maybe they did some work or not, but still, like it only proves the point that if you want to be off work, like there are ways about it, but you need to be explicit. You need to make the deliberate steps to do it.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Now, should we actually jump on the articles? Let's scan through some of the build news and let's come back on the discussion as well. So let's start with the primary hero blog post from Nicole Herskovich. She's the marketing lead for Microsoft 365 platform. And this basically, comes back on your collaborative apps discussion, which you mentioned already. Let's get rid of that. One more. It's like the USB stick,
Yeah.
Other way around and turn it another way around.
It's wrong. It's yeah.
Yes, exactly. Now, so that's the new terminology. So collaborative applications and Microsoft Teams and Office in the top, and then components here, Azure, of course, and Power Platform in the here, and the data graph and all of that. So ACS, Azure Communication Services mentioned as well. That was pretty cool. We've been reviewing that already. So, and low code, no code divider as well. Now, what else? So this one was really cool. Yes, shared states integration. No, is it that? Yes, it is. It's basically the fact that you can actually design, you can have an application which takes the full screen as you are working and collaborating during the call. And that might actually be a really, really cool, let's say, killer application even for the teams, because you can actually work together more efficiently. Depending on technology and what is being offered. So really cool as well. This one was kind of cool, well, at least funny. So you can actually create your own together mode extensibility models. Now, how many of these we actually need, I don't know. So
all of them.
All of them, just thousands and thousands of them. But apparently they support putting these also in the store. So people can actually acquire them from the store. I think one of I think it was Hugo Bernier who already did the Muppets one, but of course there's a legal copyright thingy is related on that, so you can't really push that to the store because you don't own the layout. So
yeah,
but hey, so okay. And additional APIs available. ACS, basically communication services. You can call, you can do things, you can automate operation. That's really cool as well. Cross-platform collaborative experiences from Outlook. And fluid components. Yes, it's in preview right now, so you can actually collaborate directly in the view as well. Let's see how that goes. It's been a big long promise for a long time, and hopefully we'll get it out pretty soon. It is super promising technology though. So
it is, absolutely.
Outlook message extensions supported in message extensions will be supported in Outlook, so that's really cool as well. Consistency between your implementation styles, really cool. Updates on the Power Platform area as well. A lot of things on that side. The Visual Studio tooling, we mentioned this one already. It is actually really impressive. They've really done a great job of evolving the experience. So from a V1, so V2 is clearly a big jump forward from that perspective. Teams developer portal. We had a preview of this one actually shown in the community call pretty recently as well. A lot of interest on that recording also, actually. So where you can actually then you can connect this basically to your tenant, and then you can control and manage the application. So really, really cool. This one was really interesting. So the monetization, purchase subscriptions of partner apps directly in the Teams store and Teams Admin Center. Have you had a chance on looking into this?
I mean, not really, because it's still yet to come, right? So I didn't have any, or I don't have any more insights about it beyond what it is shared here. But I know that there's a lot of interest in that, like the ability to, like, for many partners who are, let's say, small ISVs, like they don't have their own billing system with subscriptions and whatnot, right? So if they can get that like easily like that for free, it will be really easy for them to get money or to sell their offerings.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the key point. We did shut down. We used to have a licensing model and subscription model supported in the Office store when it was Office was leading the store model. That was actually shut down a year ago, and so there was no licensing models right now in the Office store. But this is now bringing something available, which is really, really cool. So it's good. People have been asking about this one for a long. Also, we went public with the private preview of Microsoft Viva, which we basically Viva Connections. So it is about Viva Connection cards. So basically how to implement these things in the dashboard. When we go to the dashboard, here we go. Those cards, how do we actually implement them, which are also available in the desktop and in the desktop view as well. So if you are interested, please sign up for early access on that one and fill in this form, which is waiting in here. There's my background. There we go. So good. And a lot of other announcements, a lot of stuff on the Windows apps as well, which we haven't really focused too much. So I haven't really followed up on what's happening here, except for the .NET 5. I knew about that one. And then the WebView updates as well. So really, really cool stuff. Good. And then we have a lot of articles here, which are basically recapping the news. But first of all, the book of news. And for those who are not aware what this is actually the one that these are really, really good. So in every single conference, we tend to have the book of news, where we then list all of the new announcements, which are part of the announcements related on the conference. So, but this actually shows also the problem what we have. So there's so much new stuff getting announced that people can't really find what it is all about. But at least we have one big list on things, listing all of the big announcements on Windows or in Microsoft 365. We actually Microsoft Graph. Okay, this is how we go.
365. No. So that is the whole 365 part. Yeah.
4.0. Yep. So, but really cool stuff as well. Now, and then we have a lot of recaps. Basically, this is a sister blog post article related on from the Microsoft Teams blog, related on the biggest announcement on Microsoft Teams, following up on the hero blog post. So basically, partly duplicate the information, partly some additional details as well. Something like, where was it? App configuration in private preview, so you can actually do those. And this one was customization. We talked about this one actually last week as well. It was already announced.
Exactly. Yeah.
That one. So a lot of more additional details. This is then from the Microsoft 365 developer blog, isn't it? No, this is from the Teams blog still. Sorry. The latest Teams Toolkit, summary on that one as well. So just a recap on what's actually getting available. How do you debug stuff? You're able to put those breakpoints in Azure Functions. There's a lot of additional capabilities. Does this mean that now that this is white, that black is no longer the dark view is no longer the thing? So
where?
See, the Visual Studio Code.
No, so actually the reason behind it is that when you present, it's easier to look at than a dark mode. So oftentimes at events, you're being asked to switch your theme to light mode because it is easier to follow.
Sure. Okay, fine. Or maybe it comes to be the cool thing again. So because everybody's using the dark mode. Everything goes in cycles, right? So
of course.
Last week there was also the What's New from Microsoft Teams released on 28th of May. So not precisely related on Microsoft Build, but also the other features as well. So of course, including what's in the build as well. So additional capabilities like the presentation mode, this is actually really, really cool that it's natively supports this kind of a broadcasting technique, which is really, really nice. And removal of the background images and all of that. So, except in my case, because I have that green stuff behind of my back, Teams is always having difficult time of understanding which is my hair and which is the
I don't have a green screen, so that's
exactly. So, but a lot of great new announcements and capabilities coming on the Microsoft Teams site in the May summary. Related on devices, related on end user capabilities, e-sign approval requests. There's a lot of investments happening in here. Now, visualize and contextualize people and teams with new organization browser and Outlook from Bill Bear. So this one announcement in the Microsoft 365 blog site. So basically, Outlook has a really nice new organizational structure, and I think this similar kind of experience are getting then adapted into other products hopefully as well. So it's not just about, I think this is for the Office insiders, but this is only in Outlook as a client.
Well, but I guess like you could say that it makes sense in a way, because like in Word or PowerPoint, like where would you want to see the whole org chart? Like I can imagine that. Yes, of course. Well, but I mean, like when you say other products, I was like, okay, so other things inside the Office family?
No, that's what I mean. Yes, exactly. That's what I mean. So the same experience being surfaced consistently, regardless where are you surfacing the organizational structure. So when you're doing Hovercolor on top of the name, you will get the person card, and in there you can then just open up the details, and then that should show this kind of an experience consistently across every single application. So. Yeah. But anyway, so one step forward and looking really, really good as well. So what's new in the admins Microsoft 365 apps for enterprise, April and May 2021 from Microsoft 365 blog as well. So new announcements related on Office 365 admin side of the house, like OneDrive Sync admin reports, videos on making things happen as well. So a lot of new stuff there. What's new for Microsoft 365 Developer Build 2021? Again, a summary on the same announcements. So there's a slightly different perspective. There's the hero blog post, and there's always the second dimension of blog post. Fluid Framework Microsoft 365 library now is in preview. You can sign up for that. I think it's actually a form as well. So there we go. You can actually enable things in your tenant. And a lot of other announcements, of course, here as well. But a lot of this stuff is the same, which is in the primary blog post. So, but cool to get them covered, and a lot of investments across the areas. 4 new features to build richer apps for Microsoft Teams meetings. So, first of all, the new Together Mode extensibility option, which, by the way, if you're wondering where can that be done, you need to go to the developer portal for Microsoft Teams, which is, I think it's dev.teams. What is it actually? So I will check it out. There we go. It's dev.teams.microsoft. See, I almost remembered that correctly. So. But you can actually try
something with Teams and Microsoft. Like how hard can it be, right?
Exactly. Dev.teams@microsoft.com. So, but you can actually try your own Together Mode pictures, and then you can publish those to your tenant and also potentially to the store, which is pretty really cool as well. I don't know if I would like to have this kind of but hey, so why not? So kind of cool, I guess. But this one was really, really, really big thing. So you can actually build those applications during meeting time, and which can actually take the full screen, and then you can work together on that application. Of course, the application has to support the co-authoring and co-action, so it's updating all the time what's actually happening, because every single person have their own dedicated view on the application. So but really cool stuff as well. New APIs available, so you can automate stuff more efficiently and better app discovery and acquisition experience. So directly in the meetings as well. So really cool stuff. That was the Teams developer portal. What's new in the Office platform, Microsoft in Build 2021. So summary on all of those announcements, primarily for Outlook and of course Excel as well. A lot of API improvements across the board. Build is really the platform announcement time for all of the new things. Microsoft Graph Build 2021 summary on things, and then the nice links on all of the different dedicated sessions related on and the recordings nowadays. So that's actually a really nice way of then finding what's relevant and what was presented as part of the build. So that's really, really cool, and a lot of stuff happening in the Graph as well. This one, Microsoft Teams App Development Challenge winners. I think we started this, from November. Just wondering, when did we do that? We started that from November and executed until March. And the whole point of this one was basically that what is it? Virtual. It wasn't really a hackathon. It's basically creating an application and then submitting that as part of the competition, and then they're getting graded. And apparently, Decision Point from India won the whole thing. So, woohoo! I don't actually know how many submissions, but I know that there was a lot of submissions on this one, and these are probably, and so these are, pointing directly on the applications in the store. So really cool. Moving on to the developer community side of the house, so community spotlight with Hugo Bernier from Louis Fries. Louis is doing the weekly summaries on the community spotlights, and so what people actually do and what they used to do. Hugo just recently joined Microsoft. He is an ex-MVP. How to invite external users to show up on site of Microsoft Teams using Power Automate and Graph APIs from Ashik Falil. So that's cool automation for sure. Using Graph APIs behind the scenes, making things happen. So really, really cool. SPFX web part form validation using React form and MIC from Chandani Prayapati. So just getting the name completely wrong pronounced it. So, but basically building a SPFX solution where we have the validations in place. Quite typical actually scenario. So that's a good blog post showing how that can be achieved. Now you had a cache data when using Microsoft Graph JavaScript SDK. What's this all about?
Yeah, so when you use the Microsoft Graph JavaScript SDK in your app to interact with the Microsoft Graph, by default it doesn't cache the data. So imagine that you build an app in which you want to show like your team and for everybody the recent files. Like if you wanted to show info about people, you might end up downloading the same info over and over again because the same person is in your team and then might create new files, right? So for each file, you will get their name, avatar, and job, and so forth and so on. So why not cache that and only retrieve it from Graph once, right? So in this article, I show like how you can build a middleware, which is like a building block to add to the Microsoft Graph. And that is also a cool thing because it doesn't require you to change your whole app. Like it's not like you need to update every single call you make to Graph in your app. No, you add middleware to the SDK, and then in a way, all calls that you do in your app to Microsoft Graph already take or make use of this middleware in there.
Which is anyway a good practice because then if you need to adjust anything or do locking, you have a one location where you add that. So all of the calls go through the one location and then execute things. So absolutely cool stuff. Now there was also a new announcement on the CLI from Carrie Trinder. You've been involved in this one. Anything new? What you want to call out related on 3.10?
Correct. Yeah, so we released a new version with both new commands and changes, names-worthy things. Like we added, for example, new commands to get the 80 app role app roles, which give you a really cool way to manage the access to your apps. Another thing, we added new command to upload files to OneDrive and SharePoint, and that one is based on Microsoft Graph. So it allows you to use the more limited permissions as opposed to access to all sites. And other things like removing Powerapps, a bunch of sample scripts, all towards making it easier for all of us to manage Microsoft 365 in any shell and platform.
Yep, makes perfect sense. And it's good to see the constant involvement and evolution of this application as well. Every single week there's new stuff. Now let's move into then the Stefan. Stefan had a few new blog posts related on H2O UI, which is basically it's based on design of the Fluid framework coming from Microsoft, but it's just CSS and HTML. So trying to keep it as simple as possible and adaptive as possible for any JavaScript framework. And that's what he's basically building. And this is really, really cool stuff. But basically, there's a new version available. And then he had an article related on how to use H2O with SPFX React JavaScript web part. So explaining that story as well. So super important to explain how to then use that library. So, Chris Kent had a custom icon buttons in Powerapps with Hovercolor. So, easy solution. Just use their stupid icons. Okay.
Done. Next.
Anyway. So good blog post from Chris related on that one and the sizing and there's a lot of details on this blog post related on SVG formatting and how it can be modified. That's actually really, really detailed explanation how things actually work. So from Chris.
Yeah.
From Peter Venstra. Environment variables in Powerapps, good article on that one, so how those actually works. And this is related on moving stuff across the environments, across the sites, so you can actually have those variables available. Mark D. Anderson showing the intranet link in an app bar global navigation. So how do we actually modify the app bar navigation? Right now, those modifications are relatively limited, but there's going to be more extensibility options for that one in future for sure. But basically this talks and explains how these settings will be impacted and how do we modify the global navigation, how do we make things to happen on the app bar. And the app bar, these configurations are also available in the Microsoft Viva when you're clicking the Viva icon in Microsoft Teams. Simplify secret keys management for Microsoft 365 application with Azure Key Vault and Azure Managed Identity from Sergei Zerkeyev, and really around storing information in a secure way for your application. So super, super important. That's what the Key Vault is all about. And how do you make your development as easy as possible related on this tooling.
Yeah, and also in a way, not to use it like, so you store your passwords in Key Vault, but then you store the connection string to Key Vault in plain text in your app,
yes.
which is like,
yeah.
Hold on a moment. No, that's not what you're supposed to do.
Yep, absolutely. Cool, really cool stuff. And then Joanna Klein had an article related to Microsoft 365 fiscal year retention event-based library default. So this is basically a follow-up on the series where she had already one blog post related on this one. And how things are evolving on this area as well. So good stuff. And for the retention side of the house, I'm not a super specialist on these topics at all. But actually, this looks really, really, really cool. So refinable search results and all of that stuff. So finding relevant information based on the data and based on the information. So really, really nice blog post explaining the model. April had a Power Platform News Rewind, May 2021, and this is basically new announcements. And she's doing a really good job on also listing out all of the different announcements, so you can actually jump on a specific topic, and which is really, really cool. And Paolo had a new video related to Microsoft Graph Toolkit to-do components. So basically using Microsoft Graph Toolkit and to-do component in your solution. So, and with the live demos, these are really cool, simple demos and explaining how things work. These are really, really good on explaining how things are working. And then the final thing was Powerapps can be now display images from Microsoft Lists from the Message Center show, 365 Message Center show, episode 196. We need to start doing double episodes in a week so we can catch up. Just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. No. I mean, we can do an episode every day, basically so that you start your day with us. No.
But good summary on things as well, and then basically calling out all of the different new announcements which are coming. This is actually a really cool show as well, related on what's coming, because this is based on the information which is coming from Message Center announcements, which is basically one way how we communicate the new features. We should get even more consistent on using that as the primary channel for everything what is getting released. Done. Hey, it's always hard. Now, what's going to happen this week?
Getting back to the normal work after build. Yeah. The good thing is
today is actually awesome because now it's Monday and it's Memorial Day in US, so it's going to be a free evening, right?
I mean, for me, it's free evening every evening, so you're holding it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, so getting back to normal after build. No presentations, no meetings. I think. No. Yep. So I have some things in my team, but there's nothing like no conferences to speak. Yep. We have a bunch of PRs for CLI from Microsoft 365, so we will go through them. And that's also
this week is the European SharePoint conference, isn't it? It is actually.
I'm not presenting there, so I wouldn't.
Yeah, know. I know.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so like, okay. Anything else? No. I mean, there are some internal projects I'm working on, but that is just like still early on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yourself?
Getting back in line, getting back in a normal business. SPFX version 2. Yeah. So 113, the preview, executing that one. We are planning to do certain announcements related on SharePoint add-ins. Obviously, legacy technology, don't use add-ins. So preparing for that one. So getting all of the ducks in a row, so to say. Before making any decisions, and analytics, a lot of actually telemetry improvements this week as well, related on many areas, so that we have more information how people are actually using the and what's being used. So
right.
But yeah, getting more back into normal. And like you said, I don't have any scheduled presentations until December. Tomorrow. Maybe. So yeah. Well, of course, the community calls and everything else, but that's a separate thing. So, but I think that the next one is the North American, the SharePoint conference is coming. Well, what was it now? Collaboration. What's now? What is the SharePoint? What is that called now?
Collaboration.
Collaboration.
I don't know.
It is Microsoft 365 Collaboration Conference.
Collaboration Conference. Okay.
Yeah. But that's in December, and then there's the European collaborations. What does it? No.
Summit.
Yes.
ECS. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. But anyway, that's in the end of the year as well, and both of these are intended to be actual physical conferences. So it's interesting to see if that's going to happen and what does that actually mean.
Exactly.
Are we going to really fly to MGM to Las Vegas? It's actually also interesting if you go to the SharePointNA.com, which is the Microsoft Collaboration Conference welcome page. You see people without masks watching presentations in the conference audience and hanging, and it's so strange. It looks like a completely different world.
Yeah, it is. And the weird thing is, especially in the US, everybody is vaccinated now, or at least everybody who wanted to be vaccinated already is, I think.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, it's still, I think the other day I've seen on Twitter, there was an image from an event where they would hand out wristbands in three colors that indicate no contact at all, elbows only, or basically hugs unvaccinated, so that everybody can wear a wristband that indicates like how they want everybody to interact with them. So,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's actually, that's smart. That is actually really good. So good.
Yeah, but it's still, if there's one person ill and they sneeze, like the whole room is sick.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, you can keep distance, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I think we just need to see what happens on the summer in the Northern Hemisphere timeframe right now. So, and then let's follow up on these things after that.
Yeah, and as for events, we might have something for the fall, right? A thing. We might have. It's still very much in early plans, but there might be a thing, right?
Do we? I don't know.
I'm saying we might, not that we do.
Okay, fine. I have no idea what
the thing.
I can't remember what happened last week, so it's all good.
It's a blur.
It's a blur. Yes. Cool. Anyway, so
But it is a weird thing, right? If you go to a conference, you at least know why you don't remember things. Like there is a reason for that. Whereas no, you were at home. Like what happened?
Hey, it's okay. Anyway, but thanks everybody for watching and listening. We actually do have a visitor already scheduled for the next one, so it will be with a new person unless there's any cancellations, but that should be a good discussion as well. Looking forward on that. But thanks everybody for watching, listening, and keep the feedback coming. If you have good ideas how we can improve documentation guidance, whatever assets you would need to be more successful, please reach out and let us know, because that's what we want to do. We want to make your life easier. But I think that's it. Let's get back to work. Thanks, everybody. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you.